Back here in Radio Row, Ryan Lombardi alongside Derryl Barnes. Pleasure to have you from Front Office Sports. And just go into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got your start.
Yeah, well, Ryan, it is my pleasure to be here. Oh, yeah. Get me all set up. See, that's why you're the pro. Yeah. So I am the 2024 Jim Nantz Award winner, the top college sportscaster. But my kind of broadcasting journey, if you will, started 4 years before that. I went to a high school broadcasting program called the Beacon Academy of Digital and Media Arts. That was in South Elgin High School in South Elgin, Illinois. So I basically started there just because I wanted to go to South Elgin High School in order to play basketball at South Elgin. All my friends went to South Elgin, and I was like, you know what, I want to go here and I want to play basketball. Little did I know my basketball career wouldn't work out. But what would end up happening is that I would go and begin broadcasting our basketball games. And so that one thing turned into another. I realized, man, I'm kind of into this whole broadcasting thing. If I can't play sports, why not try and talk about it? And then that led me to getting a scholarship to the University of Miami. I was basically a broadcast nerd. I was checking out every college TV station, every college radio station in the country, and I was like, ooh, I got my short list. Miami wasn't on it.
Yeah.
But I ended up going there because I went and I turned on their campus TV station, UMTV, and I was like, oh, okay. They're not on any of these like top rankings lists, but they're pretty good. They got good setup and stuff. And then when I went and visited, they said, hey, you'll be able to get opportunities and reps in right away, day one. You don't have to wait around till junior year, right? I went to some of the top schools and they're like, yeah, your first couple of years, you're going to be in the background. You're going to be learning the foundation, learning how to write, learning how to do everything. And I was like, okay, cool. But having done this a little bit in the high school, I kind of wanted to, step right in, keep getting reps. And Miami let me do that. They gave me a full academic scholarship and, gave me the opportunity to get the reps, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to all of us at St. Bonaventure. We're small but Division I school, and as a freshman, you're able to get reps right away. Like I was calling basketball games on the radio as a freshman, so it definitely is important. I think the only way to really be successful in this industry is just trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what I'm doing now with my job at Front Office Sports, right? I was our first full-time, at least, multimedia reporter. I'm creating digital and social videos, right? My whole job is making videos for TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and it's like, hey, this isn't necessarily something I've seen at a lot of major outlets from like hey, this is a full-time position before, this is a full-time reporter position, but it was something that I was passionate about doing. I watch all the time, and you're like, hey, okay, was I really prepared for this? Oh, no, that's debatable, but trial by fire. Step in, learn, and then you keep studying up the same way you would for anything, and the more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly, you just have to do it. I guess with that, if you think back to like 4 years ago, you're a freshman at Miami.
Yeah.
Did you see yourself maybe like working with Front Office and being a multimedia journalist, that kind of thing? Like, did you ever imagine that?
I feel like I always told people, yeah, I want to be at like the intersection of social media and broadcasting and whatever that's going to be. Didn't know what that looked like. So freshman year, obviously, yeah, I would have never imagined myself sitting in this position. I think even junior, senior year, I told a lot of people, hey, I want to do, and I described my job now, I want to make, these highly produced, high-quality videos for social media, but I want them to be journalism, not just like mindless scroll, mind-numbing clicks, right? But it ended up working out, and I just kind of carved out the role. Russ Wild, who's one of our co-founders, ended up just finding me on Twitter my sophomore year, and then he started DMing me from there, and then I reached out to our founder, Adam White, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. This wasn't a job that was necessarily posted. I asked them, hey, is this something you guys would be interested in getting into video 5 years down the line? Because I'm like, hey, y'all are focusing on newsletter, you got the website going, but maybe one day will you get into video? He said, how about now?
Why not?
And then
Why not?
It turned into what it is now, my first full-time job right out of school.
Yeah, and that's awesome that, it wasn't even a job, and you kind of just did the unusual thing and just kind of reach out and say like, hey, what if we made this a job? And I think that's just so powerful. But I guess throughout your college career and maybe even a little bit of high school, who was who had the biggest impact on your broadcast like journalistic career?
I mean, so I feel like I pull from a lot of different people. Actually, if I opened up my phone right now, I could show you this folder that I've been making since my sophomore year of high school, where it's just like a bookmark tab on Instagram where every time I see a video that I like, I go and put it inside there. Or I used to do a lot of screen recordings of just, hey, I saw something little here that I like, and then I would go and do that. But then there's also, specific people that you can go through, like Drew Carter was actually the first person that made me be like, whoa, you can be this good right out of college as a senior in college. I didn't nearly reach the level of Drew though. And then Scotty Gange was somebody that just his attitude, the way he's so like happy but so himself, and so I don't know, like when I watch Scotty, it makes me smile.
Right.
And so that's like someone who I look at and I'm like, yeah, I want to be like that when I'm on air. I want people to feel like you're my friend, or I'm just making a smile come out.
I guess just a little more in depth, like what exactly, when you got to Miami, what was like the first piece of like media you did?
Yeah. So when I got to Miami day one, I started on our weekly live sports and weekly live news shows. So that's Sports Desk and that's News Vision. So I joined those, and then we have packages, due every couple of weeks. You'll be assigned. We have a big cast. Not everyone needs to make one every single week. I remember my first story was actually, I freaked out. I thought it was horrendous. I thought it was horrible. It was about the Canes women's basketball team was doing this event on campus for voting.
Okay.
They were collaborating with this thing called Get Out the Vote. And then they were just taking a lap around the campus, wearing the shirts, and then wearing shirts like saying Canes vote. And they were like, okay, cool. This will be a quick, easy thing for you to go, cover, turn around. I don't know how common it is for people to like basically day turn packages in college, but that was like what my first package was essentially supposed to be. And it ended up working out. It was perfectly fine. I showed it to, the producers once it was done. And mind you, it was like 2 hours late. Our show airs at 7. They were like, hey, get this in by 3. It's 5 o'clock. They come downstairs and they're like, hey, Derryl, what's going on? And when I show them the video, they're like, what do you mean this is horrible? This is perfectly fine. And that was like a validating moment of like, oh, you know what? You're your biggest critic and you can keep going. And then from there, I put together longer pieces. That one of them, the one I put together my freshman year, got me noticed by FOS, but got me noticed by Russ, was the history of throwing up the U.
Okay.
This mini documentary on the history of what the heck does this, where does this come from? Because one of my teachers, you did it wrong. See, that's the Utah U.
Oh, it's gotta like this?
Yeah, you gotta keep your pinkies in,
right.
Thumbs together.
All right.
Okay, you gotta do it right. You gotta do it right. But I just had a professor come to me and be like, hey, if you want to work on a project, a longer project, we can do this. I have this idea. He found like this historic footage of someone throwing up the U on camera on, I think it was like an NBC broadcast 15 years before it was allegedly started. So that we're like, okay, let's go find out where this actually comes from. But yeah, so
I mean, with that first story going well, is there a story you can remember that you were like, yeah, I didn't really like that one?
Yeah, all of them. Like yesterday, I was interviewing CJ Gardner-Johnson. I was like, you know what? That was not my best interview. That was probably one of my worst. But when I got home, I went and I saved that to a folder, and I'm like, okay, I can do better than this. If this is as bad as it gets, cool. There's always going to be tomorrow. There's always going to be more opportunities. But yeah, there's plenty of stories that I look back at and I'm like, yikes, that's pretty bad. I look at my entire play-by-play career and I'm like, yeah.
Are you done with play-by-play?
I just don't think it's for me. Just the fact that I don't have the soothing, beautiful voice like you have. My voice is a little higher pitch, so I'm like, maybe I'm better suited, social media or just being a reporter or something like that. I feel like I don't know, I don't have the juice that you guys have for a long play-by-play career, but yeah.
And then what was your favorite piece of media you ever produced, like your favorite story you covered?
My favorite story that I've ever covered. That's a hard one, but what I will say is that there is one thing that I am most that I'm pretty proud of throughout my college career, and that is I launched this series with ESPN. I was interning with ESPN's YouTube team, and I somehow convinced their director at the time, Jeremy Fitch, to let me produce this series of short form videos called ESPN Backstory. And so I just was like, hey, my passion is, producing these high quality, short form content. I created this template for it, and I just created basically a pitch for him. I created a demo story for him so that he could be like, yeah, just mock one up and then see how it looks. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put it together. It was about Erin Matson and how she's basically like the Michael Jordan of women's field hockey. And then I give it to him, and he says, this is great. Why don't we just post this as is? And I was like, what do you mean post this as is? Because I'm supposed to be creating this for an ESPN talent to be able to go and record this and then put this, on our YouTube pages. And he was like, what if we just posted this one? And so like my face is on a ESPN like YouTube short, and I'm like sitting there as a kid in college. Yeah. And I'm like, this feels like the dream, right? And then that series I started producing it for Aaron K. Dolan's channel, and it only ran like 4 or 5 shorts because it was at the end of a 10-week internship. I was doing like one a week, but I just look back and I'm like, wow, that was something that I just took the initiative to do, went above and beyond what like my actual internship called for, and then now it's just out there. And it was the first time I did something like that, and now that's my full-time job.
Right.
So that's like one of my favorite things that I've probably ever done.
I guess on that note, have you had a moment where you kind of just like you're doing a story or whatever, and you kind of just take a step back and go just like wherever you are in the country, and just been like, oh crap, like I'm really doing this?
Yeah. Basically, I went to Berlin as my first official work trip at Front Office Sports. We were a media partner with the Laver Cup. They basically asked us to come out. This was a tournament founded by Roger Federer and his agent, and all honoring, Rod Laver. And I had never been out the country before. I had never been to Europe before. And so I'm sitting there, getting on a plane, flying, 14 hours to this country that I've never been. And I was like, in the room, they had a black carpet event. Okay. And then, so it's just people, tennis legends going back and forth, like Americans, Europeans just walking by. And I interview Roger Federer, and I stop, and I was like, wait, that was pretty cool. I am in this room right now, and that I didn't think, I'd ever be in. And just every trip after that, I worked with TNT Sports with our Lift Every Voice fellow last year at NBA All-Star Weekend. And that was like, you're sitting in a room full of NBA legends, and they're talking to you as, like an equal or as a coworker. I went up to Jamal Crawford, and he said, hi, I'm Jamal. Yeah. And I was like, you don't have to introduce yourself to me. Like, you're one of my favorite players of all time. Like, Jake Crossover. Like, that's who you are. And he was like, man, can I get a picture with you? What do you mean Jamal Crawford's asking to take a photo with
right, yeah.
And so it's that type of stuff. You'll have a lot of those just interactions in the media industry where it's like, wow, like, look back, I'm surprised that I'm here right now. And then, yeah, I'd say Isaiah Thomas, actually, the old Isaiah Thomas from Pistons was my favorite, like, media interaction.
I love that.
Because I told, he's from Chicago, right? He's known as like the villain in Chicago, but he's from Chicago. And I told him, I was like, hey, Isaiah, just want to say, big fan. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. He said, which one? I said, Elgin, Illinois. No one knows where Elgin is. It's 30 miles outside the city, 40 minutes to an hour outside the city. And then he comes up to me in the elevator at the end of the night. I did my first hit for TNT Sports, and it was airing on NBA TV. And he said, Derryl, did you hear it? I just shouted out Elgin on TV because he was like, I know exactly where Elgin is. And I was like, man, that's awesome. Cool. And it's moments like these where like, wow, I'm in the room. I can't believe I'm doing this.
So, with that, I mean, obviously you're still really, you just got out of college, but if you could offer one piece of advice for like a younger broadcasters, maybe in their freshman, sophomore year of college, what would that be?
I mean, I would do as much as you can with your outlets on campus, your student media outlets. Like, that's where you're going to get all the reps. That's going to help you go and get credentials to do things that you either really want to do or didn't realize that were events that you could get experience doing. And just diving head first into those is the biggest way to just get the reps, get better, put in your 5,000 hours or whatever the saying is. Because for me, they had to create a rule at UMTV called the Derryl Barnes rule, unofficially. You know, I like to think of it as the Derryl Barnes
Right.
rule, but it's because I applied to every show on our UMTV, our campus TV program, and they said, okay, you know what? This kid got casted on all 6 shows that he auditioned for. He can only do 2.
Right.
And so from then on out,
They were like requiring to.
but that was just me being like, I want to do everything I can.
Of course.
Because and get as many reps as I can. Because I think that the more reps you get early on, the better you're going to get.
So then, if you weren't a journalist, what do you think you would be doing with your life?
Something with math.
Really?
Actually. Yeah, so
I feel like I was a communications major. Usually math is not the strong suit.
so my biggest flex in life is that on the SAT, I only got 1 question wrong on the math section of the SAT. And then I decided just to go into English, and I scored significantly worse in English. But I just think I'm a big numbers guy. I love numbers. I love looking at the stats. I think it helps with social media. I'm like addicted right now to
Right.
looking at the analytics of, hey, how are things performing? Why? And so definitely something with math, but not quite sure what that would be, because I heard computer science isn't going too well with AI kind of changing the game over
Right. And then I guess, what's the most challenging story? Like, has there been like a story where like, wow, this is gonna take me way longer, or wow, like I didn't know this would be that hard?
Yeah. I did another documentary, like mini documentary. It was basically a long feature story on the history of our mascot Sebastian the Ibis at the University of Miami. We had gotten tipped off that all the mascots are anonymous, right? There are multiple people who play Sebastian at UM, and we had gotten tipped off that the first ever female Sebastian the Ibis was graduating in the spring. And so this is over winter break, and they're like, hey, maybe we should follow her around, document her journey during her last semester, and then all the way up to her reveal. So we go and do all that, and we're like, okay, cool, now we captured this at graduation. I'm just gonna take a couple weeks, edit it up over the summer as I'm working, and we're gonna be all good. And then all of a sudden I got this call from my professor who was helping us on the story, and he said, yeah, this lady wrote into the Miami Herald, which is the local newspaper, saying that this girl isn't the first female Sebastian the Ibis. So then we spent, already 6 months covering this story, and you're like, oh, so there's more to it? And so then that turned into, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And so we reached out to her. Then it was turned into, okay, so do I book a flight to come out and interview her, or how is this going to work? And then so we ended up getting an interview with her. One of my classmates talked to her, and then that turned into an extra 3 months on top of that. And it was like, okay, if we're going to do it, let's do it right, and let's make it as good as we can. We turned that into a full-on just like, hey, this story about the first female Sebastian the Ibis into, hey, everyone thought this was the first female Sebastian the Ibis, but apparently it's not. Let's go back, all the way back, and then see where did this misconception come from, but highlight then the storied history of, this campus icon. And so that was another story that went on to then win a bunch of college awards, and I got to take me to a bunch of different places to accept those awards, right? And so it was super fun. But it was definitely a more difficult story than I was expecting.
But it ended up working out.
Yeah, well, it ended up working out and ended up becoming one of my favorite pieces, and something that I put in my portfolio of showing, and was in my Jim Nantz award reel, so yeah, that was definitely a good one.
And then speaking of the Jim Nantz Award, I mean, just tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did you first hear about it? And then ultimately, like, when you won, just what was that reaction like?
Yeah, I heard about it for the first time when I was a senior in high school. Drew Carter was the winner that year. or he might have been the winner my junior year, of high school. So 2019, 2020, one of those. And I started just doing this deep dive into this company because I was like, oh, they have this article from 2013 talking about the top broadcasting schools. Maybe I should check this out. And I was like, who is this company? And then I started looking at, this guy, Drew Carter, he's really good. And then the next year, it was, this Scotty Gange guy, he's really good. And I was like, you know what? I want to be this good. My senior year, I want people to look at me like this. And it's so funny because one of my good friends now, Yao Bansu, he's a sports anchor up in Michigan. And I saw him reply to the tweet saying, I want to be the first, black winner of the Jim Nantz Award. And I looked at that reply and I was like, I want to too. and so from there I made it a goal of mine quietly. But I thought that once I got to college, I ended up giving up play-by-play. Again, my high voice wasn't really suited for it. And so then I thought, man, I gave up my chance of ever winning this award. And so I continued doing my stories and just doing the best I can. And then John Chalesnik, who runs STAA, reached out to me on LinkedIn, actually, because he saw my stories about the history of throwing up the U and the history of Sebastian Ibis. And he was like, you have some really interesting stuff here. I would really encourage you to apply for this. And I was like, I don't do play-by-play. I, have some weird stuff on my resume. I do stuff for social media. And he was like, no, don't worry. You fit the category to go ahead and apply. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I applied my junior year. I was then named a first-team All-American, which was a big deal on my campus just because I didn't do play-by-play. There were a whole slew of guys that did play-by-play that applied to this award. They were not happy every year. And yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that they weren't happy. It was like, whoa, where did this come from?
Okay, yeah.
And so, but it was fun. And then when I walked around, they all congratulated me, and I was like, you guys no, me? I'm like, not really, but it was. But so then after that, I was like, okay, cool. The following year, I just focused on putting together the best stories I could. And then that next year, I apply again. And I'm like, I just turned it on to go and see, okay, who won this year? Because I wasn't actually expecting to win. I said, I don't feel like I have done enough to get me back, to what I look at as this mountaintop, right? Towards the top of this mountain top. So I was like, I don't know, I'd be happy with, third team or honorable mention. I didn't really do a whole lot this year though. And then we go all the way through the list and I'm like, wow, dang, I wasn't on there at all. And then all the people who I knew of, through Twitter, through Cyberstalk, and I cyberstalk a lot of college reporters because I'm like, hey, you guys are my peers and I want to be as good as you. You guys inspire me. And so after everyone that I knew whose name was called, I was like, so who the heck won this thing? And then they said, first place, Derryl Barnes. And I was like, I'm in my pajamas right now. I'm laying down in bed. Now I got John Chalesnik calling me on the phone to congratulate me. The year before, I had been, sitting up watching. I was dressed. I was watching it with my mom. And this year, I'm just laying here in bed. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I jumped up and, I screamed. And then I started getting calls from, some of the other past winners. I saw Carlo's message. And then Scotty Gange, who I told you, one of my favorite, reporters. I know nothing about Denver, never been to Denver. But Scotty Gange is a sports reporter in Denver. I feel like I know so much about Denver high school sports because I watch every one of his stories. And then he's calling me on the phone and congratulating me. And then Josh Apple calls me and congratulates me. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I just didn't think I would be here, especially because I decided to do things my own way rather than go the traditional, hey, play-by-play route.
I love that. All right, so as we're moving to the end of the interview, I got some just fun, random questions for you. Since we are the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, yes. What is a Bonnie?
No clue. What? You tell me what it is, because I'm imagining a little box-looking thing with I'm trying to picture the logo. Maybe
You're
it has like
close.
like a triangle looking nose, like upside down triangle looking nose.
So, I work in admissions at St. Bonaventure, and I
Okay.
give tours. So when someone
was an
asks
answer
for the
to our
Bonnie,
ad.
okay, there we go. So when I give tours, they tell me that like to say like I'm a Bonnie. So like it's all of us, but our mascot is a wolf. I mean, if Shep, you want to show, it is a wolf.
Okay.
Our like student section's called the Wolf Pack, but always have to ask that. And then since we are up there near Buffalo, buffalo wings are big. You go blue cheese or ranch guy.
Okay, I grew up hating blue cheese. Absolutely hating blue cheese. And then,
I don't know if we can.
I don't know, don't get too excited. Then a flip switch. I don't know what it was.
Let's go.
Now I
Let's
I
go.
gotta do blue cheese over ranch, only for wings. If it's anything else, like I'm not dipping my carrots in blue cheese. But for wings, you know, especially hot wings,
Okay, yeah. That was my next
the blue
question.
cheese will hit different.
Barbecue or buffalo?
No, buffalo.
And there we go.
Yeah,
there we
buffalo.
go. All right, blue or red Doritos?
Red.
There's no question. It's,
Yeah.
it's red Doritos by a million.
Yeah.
Purple bag.
We-
Purple bag.
All right, I heard I had
bag.
some purple.
The purple bag is good. The flamas are really good. The Doritos flamas, you got to try those. They're a little spicy.
Yeah.
Oh, I never had those.
Or the barbecue ones, the
Yeah.
black bag.
Wow.
Yeah, Doritos got some good stuff in their portfolio.
Have you hit up the Bounty Wings yet?
I have not.
All right, there's Bounty Wings, so definitely hit that up. Well, Derryl, we appreciate you joining us here on the Buzz. This was awesome. But thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Go Bonnies, I guess.
Go
What
Bonnies.
else?
Love that.
All right, well, stay tuned here on the Director's Cut. This is the last few minutes coming up next.